Welcome to Learning Unlocked. I am your host, Brit Bingold. As an instructional specialist in Gilbert, Arizona, I am a total nerd when it comes to classroom strategies and educational pedagogy. Educators are the key holders to unlocking learning for students. Today, as always, my goal is to provide you with resources and tools, the keys, to enable and accelerate learning for all students. Thanks for joining me today. Let's get started. Before we get going on the interview today, I just wanted to do a quick reminder that if you have time to rate us and write us a review on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate it. The more reviews and ratings we get, the more educators will see our podcast. So if you like what you're hearing and you think others would too, please head over and provide us a review. Thanks. Hey key holders, welcome to episode 19 of Learning Unlocked. Today my guest is Melinda Murphy, and we are going to discuss the trials and triumphs of being an instructional leader on a school campus. Melinda is an exceptional mom, grandmother, and high school principal. She has a bachelor's degree in English from Southern Utah University and earned her principal certification from Northern Arizona University. She taught English and public speaking for 18 years and then moved into administration 11 years ago. She is always working to increase her knowledge around equitable instructional practices, and her passion is learning instructional strategies to share with teachers in order to impact students on her campus. She also loves to read, hike, eat good food, and lounge by the pool. Girl after my own heart. And don't even think about offering her a Pepsi product because she is Diet Coke obsessed. Here is my interview with Melinda. You're going to love it. Hi, Melinda. I am so excited that you're on today, and I'm so excited it's Friday. It just has been a week or a couple of weeks, so I am just thrilled I get to talk to you today, and I really appreciate you coming on.
No problem.
Oh, so it's been a journey for sure. So speaking of journeys, I really want to know, and this always interests me because I just feel like some people have really different stories of how they ended up in the educational field. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I just didn't know what I wanted to teach. But I was always bossing little kids around, like always. Like I remember once we went camping and I made all the kids at the campground sit on a log, and I was teaching them about I have no idea what my parents had it on film. It's clearly been in my blood for a really long time, but then I just couldn't figure out what am I supposed to teach. But can you tell me a little bit of your journey into the educational field?
Sure. So I was a high school debate kid, and I had this awesome English teacher. And so in my head, I was kind of maybe, that's something for me. But when I started college, I kind of started with this vague idea that I was going to law school. So my joke is always I became a teacher, but I married an attorney, which, has kind of part of the story of how I ended up where I'm at. So my husband, when we first met, he was actually teaching college, and we kind of made this deal that I would apply to grad school when I finished my undergrad, and he would look for a job, and wherever those two things intersected, that's where we were going. So, so I went to Miami University. It's where he ended up getting a teaching job and where I went to grad school. And I really didn't have an idea on the other side of what I was doing. I was kind of buying myself time. I had one little baby, and I had another baby when I was in the middle of my master's program. And my master's program is in speech communication. So I really didn't know what I was doing, except that I was a teaching assistant. So I taught interpersonal communication and public speaking. And I found out I really enjoyed it. So we have these two little kids, and my husband decides okay, it's time to put this law degree that he has to work. And we're living in Ohio. Both of our families are in the West. His was in New Mexico. Mine is in Utah. And our next deal was wherever he passed the bar and got a job, that's where we were going. I should have never made this deal.
Wherever it takes us, that's where we go.
Yeah, it really was. I was like, when one of you has the ability to make money, that's kind of what you got to do. And you got student loans. So we ended up in this little tiny town in the southeast corner of New Mexico, right on the Texas border. And it was not the place that I would have chosen, but he ended up as a public defender. And if you know anything about public defenders, they make less than teachers do. And so I was like, oh dear, I have to get a job. And I was like, well, I have an English degree. I've got a little bit of teaching experience. Like I mentioned, I did high school debate, and then I also debated in college. And so I was like, I could coach a speech and debate team. So I literally called the principal in the only high school in town and was, hey, I have these skills. Do you by any chance need someone? And his answer to me was, when can you be here? I was like,
that.
Yeah, oh dear, right? So at the time, New Mexico had a deal that if you had a master's degree, you could apply for a teaching certificate. And that's literally what I did. So I had no idea what I was doing, like none. And first year I taught sophomore English. It was an utter disaster. The only good part was I had this awesome little speech and debate kids that would come in my room, and they were amazing. My cute little team that now they're like middle-aged and have children of their own. But they were, honestly, they made my year what it was. And it was horrible. I had a fight in my classroom. Somebody lit a fire in my garbage can. Like I was really young. I got hauled to the office for being out of class, and secretaries in the office loved that. So it was horrifying. But along the way, I met one teacher there in the building who kind of took me under her wing and taught me some classroom management skills. And so year 2 was better than year 1, and year 3 was better than year 2. And along the way, I had met a guy who ran a program, a speech and debate program at Albuquerque Academy, which is a private school in Albuquerque. And when we started talking about moving to Albuquerque, he sort of made way for me to have a job. And that was really where I got some mentoring and really kind of learned how to teach. And then from there, honestly, I was there for like 9 years, and I ended up, we ended up moving to Gallup, New Mexico, which is an interesting place to live. And I taught middle school for 1 year. And I would tell you that I have huge respect for junior high and middle school teachers, because 7th and 8th grade, that is tough to, that's just hard. And again, I had an awesome principal, and I had a really great mentor. And I felt like finally when we moved to Arizona, and by then I've been teaching for 12 years, felt like finally when I came here, I had enough tools that I could be effective in the classroom. It was a long journey to get there.
It seems to me, though, that as you did each step, you learned as you failed, which is super important. That you were like, okay, this didn't work, so I got to try this, or this didn't work, so I need to seek help, or this wasn't. I mean, that's really what teaching is. I don't think teachers realize, even if you do come from a teacher prep program, which I did, I still had that real life experience is worth so much in the classroom. Like, you just got to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. I think you just have to do it. I think you have to be open from learning from people who are really effective around you. And I think honestly, there's this intuition that sometimes you should trust. Like, it always made sense to me to know where I was going before I started. And so, when I learned like enough to be dangerous about backwards design, I was like, well, of course that's how you should plan lessons. And so I think that sometimes there's just intuition that you're like, no, that is a good idea. And then you find out that there's, research and theory that backs your good idea. And that I was fortunate that at least I had a little bit of that going for me too.
Oh, I get so excited when I make something up and then later on realize it is research based.
Right. You're like, oh, somebody else has this good idea too.
Yeah, I feel like this is rigorous and like a good engaging activity. But then and then I did it in the classroom for years. But then when I came to this position, I'm like, oh, okay. Like I felt like vindicated or something.
Yes, exactly. And then the opposite is true too. You're like, I couldn't figure out why this didn't work.
Oh,
and then you write and you're like, oh, well, here's why it didn't work.
if I just did this, it probably would have been a whole lot better. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
For
I think there's this other piece that is like a soft skill in teaching that like really enjoy kids. And I really enjoy high school kids. I just find them wildly entertaining at their best and at their worst.
It's fascinating because they're just on the edge. Like they're right there, but they're still kids. I think a lot of teachers try to teach them like adults, and you can write that line, but to me, they're still kids. Like, I'm sorry, like you're like a human prototype. You're not yet there. Like, you're still forming so many of your own opinions and who you're going to be, and that's going to continue through college still. Like, and we kind of continue that through our learning throughout our lives, but they're just so funny too. Like those things that come out of their mouths.
Yes, they're the best. I know. I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, it's like precipice of possibility, right? Like,
I love that.
I wish that, and sometimes I wish I could go back and realize, like, oh my goodness, I had so many paths available to me. Like that's just really empowering. And that's one of the things I think that great teachers bring that out in kids, right? They make them see the possibilities of themselves, in all sorts of ways. So,
I wrote that down and I love it, and I'm gonna coin it from you.
all right.
All right. Well, okay. So I am obsessed, and I don't know. I mean, obsessed, I think most people know this, but I'm obsessed with Brene Brown.
I am too a little, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, I have a little bit of a girl crush. And I've just finished her last few books, but I listened to her podcast on Daring to Lead or Dare to Lead on Spotify. And I just listened to this episode and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be talking to a principal, a leader of a very large high school in our district. And she said something about armored leadership versus daring leadership. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
So she said, armored leadership is being a knower and being right. Daring leadership is being a learner and getting it right. And as far as I am concerned, you are a daring leader.
You're sweet.
I really do believe that because I feel like you are a learner and you want to get it right. You want to get the whole, it's not a fear thing. It's more of like, okay, how do I get this right? How do I get, this action bias right? How do I get, all the things that you're trying to research, like pedagogy right? How do I get instruction right on my campus? I don't think you want to be right. I think you want to find out how to get it right. So I just wanted to applaud you for that because I think it's really hard. And that kind of segues into our next question. As a principal, you guys have so many responsibilities. Like my husband's always so funny. He's like, so what's the step up from being a teacher? Like, can you just become a principal? And I'm like, nah. Like there's it freaks me out. Like there's just so much that has to, I couldn't do. You guys deal with parents, you supervise adults, you have student activities that are like before, middle, after school, like budget, which by the way, budget makes me just like twitch. And then there's ensuring compliance with special education laws. And then you've got discipline. And so there's all this stuff that you do.
You're making me tired.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how you to do it. I don't he's like, why would you not want to do that? I'm like, because I don't know how I would do in these types of situations. Because they're so challenging. And then because I'm so passionate about instruction, and I know you are too, that I'm sure these things kind of get in the way sometimes of being the instructional leader you want to be because you feel like you're managing more than you can be instructing, right?
Oh, yes, very much so.
Yeah. So what do you think are for principals who are listening in, what are the challenges that you have found when you're trying to be an instructional leader on your campus that just get in the way of being that?
It's all the things that you just said. It's the administrative side of being an administrator, right? so there's always this drain on your time because it's funny. I was talking to a principal who's in, his first or second year, and the comment was like, when do you stop putting out fires? And I laughed. So this is my 7th year as the building principal. And I'm like, what's that?
I can't believe you've been doing this for 7 years. Like when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, this has been a long time.
It has been a long time, which is kind of miraculous, actually.
It's amazing.
Yeah, they that's the thing. Like there's always a fire to be put out, and that can be frustrating because you feel like, okay, I've got things in a good spot. Oh, there's that one. And my answer is to him was, yeah, there's always a fire, but you like after a while you put out the same fire, so you can be more efficient, if that makes sense. You start knowing what's the emergency and what's not an emergency. The other thing is that if you surround yourself with a great team, your job becomes infinitely easier. And it's been a really difficult year, but the team that I work with here, they've kept me going. They're amazing. And so you get good people around you and you trust them to, do what they're charged with doing, and things run really, really well. But it takes a lot of great leaders on a campus to make that happen. And I'm super fortunate here to have that. So that's probably the biggest one, is just time and the distraction. I think the other piece that can get in the way of being an effective instructional leader is I'm super impatient. Like it's just part of my personality. I've come to accept this. I want things done now, and I want them done a certain way. And I've learned that you have to take the time to build relationships with your teachers. They have to trust you. They have to trust that you're leading them to a better way of doing things, not that they were doing things wrong, or that there's lots of, terrible things about the way you taught this class, but like, hey, this was good. Let's make it great. And creating that trust is really the only way to get the buy-in, to get them to move along. And then the other thing is, I think that I stay on message probably like ad nauseum. They probably get tired of me talking about instruction, but I talk about it constantly. And I reassure them, I would rather come into a room for an observation and have them try something new that fails than stay safe, right? Like take a risk, fail. Like we'll talk about it afterwards and it'll be great. But they have to trust you enough to be able to take a risk. So if I'm teaching them something new, like one of the challenges is always you send teachers to PD, they hear about all these good ideas, but they come back and nothing changes, right? It's usually not that they don't want to make a change, it's that they're right. That looks really daunting, and they're taught by experts who make it look so easy, and then they go through all this self-doubt about I can never do that. Well, all those experts didn't start out being experts, right? They took risks, they failed, they got better, they tried it again. And we talk a lot around here about failing forward, right? It's okay to take a risk. The other challenge, honestly, has been getting on the same page as far as what is good instruction and what is not effective instruction, and creating that vision around, well, what does good instruction at Highland High School look like, right? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And one of the things I did when I first came in is spend probably the first semester just being in classrooms and kind of looking at like, what's going on in our classrooms? Who are these people? What do they like? What do they not like? And then I kind of started to make some shifts. And so when I say like, what does good instruction like feel like? I always say like teachers should skip out of the building and kids should drag. Like,
right? It's so interesting to see what the kids are doing too. Like I rarely look at the teacher when you first walk in the room. I always look at the kids, and it's so funny because they think immediately that I'm looking at them, and I, as somebody that watches teachers often, I'm like, I'm not looking at you at all. I'm looking at what your kids are doing, because if your kids are working hard and you're around facilitating and helping them, that's awesome. Like, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see heads down. I don't want to see kids running around. I don't want to see, I think noise is great, but it's focused noise, right? You know how many times I did things and failed? But I love taking risks in education. I don't like taking risks in my actual real life. But yeah, like I'm like, I'm not going to jump out of a plane. We talked about this. I talked about this with Jenna, but I was like, but I will take risks in education. Like, not like, I just do it because I feel like I've got the trust of the kids to be like, okay, now we're going on this journey of Miss Bingold found this online last night, and we're just gonna do it because it looks really cool. And they're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and they're funny creatures, right? Like they love doing new things in routine ways. Like that's one of the things that I try to help my new teachers with is like you need routines and patterns.
Oh, absolutely.
There's predictability, but there's also novelty within that. So if we're teaching you to use like structured collaboration, okay, that's the routine, but now what are we collaborating on, right? That's the novelty. And
With them too, and they're like, you know, like I am so used to Miss Bingold's room because it's XYZ. I know exactly what's going to happen in the beginning and the end, but in the middle, I kind of sort of know what's going to happen, but I really never know because she's a little bit off the rocker.
yeah, and that's great teaching because our kids they push against it like developmentally routine, but they absolutely need it. So it's finding that sweet spot in the middle. And encouraging teachers like that's when I do pre-conferences, you know, and I ask them just walk me through your lesson. That's one of the things I listen for is what's the beginning, what's the middle, what's the end. I think as far as like instructional leadership, I think part of it is it's got to be the thing, not just another thing for principals, right? Like for you, one of the conversations I had with a teacher a few weeks ago is like pedagogy is the thing that separates this profession, right? That's what makes you a professional. It's what makes like that's why I can't just grab anybody off the street corner, you know, and bring them into a classroom. Um, and so principals have to respect that as well. And I think when you treat pedagogy like it matters, it begins to matter to your teachers. Um, and been one of my kind of ahas as a building principal when I felt stuck. I'm like, no, you have to stay on that message. Like this is the profession. It's not another thing that we do. It literally is what we do. And that, you know, sometimes that gets frustrating. I'm sure my teachers get really tired and they're in the same place. Like, you know, it's like think about the 1,000 things you have to do as a teacher that aren't about teaching, right? It's not.
Yeah. I mean, principals have discipline in this, and teachers have attendance, which I never remember to take. And then, like, I just, you know, there's a million other things. I have to go to the bathroom. I need to go to the nurse. There's announcements, whatever. Everybody's got their distractions. But what struck me the most of what everything you just said is instruction and pedagogy are the thing. Like, it's the thing that we, as teachers and administrators, that's why we are there, is to help these kids learn. And it's not about necessarily a grade. It's not necessarily about, I mean, all those things are important. But it's about the learning. And if we don't focus on that, what are we doing?
Right. And I think that's the other thing that I think is so interesting about what you said, you know, going back to where you started with Brene Brown, that idea of learning, like my comment around here my first couple of years was like, I don't know, I'm just a displaced English teacher.
Yeah.
We don't go to principal school in some ways, right? So I think great instructional leaders are constantly learning about instruction. And yeah, I love this stuff. Like it is kind of, you know, and I'm skimming the surface, of course, because there's the, you know, the thousands of distractions. But the when I go in a classroom and I see great instruction, I get really excited about it. And I tell other teachers what I'm seeing. When I read something that I'm like, oh, this is a really cool idea, I tell my teachers about it. But I think that if, you know, if I was going to give advice to new principals, it would be that if instruction is not your center, and that we hire leaders to do all kinds of different things in buildings, but every principal should have a solid knowledge of instruction because it is the core of the work, right? Like when we talk about kids first, that's really what we're talking about is how are we impacting student learning on a daily basis? And that only happens with great teachers. It, you know.
well in their classrooms and in their peer groups. They might not even know they are. I always tell teachers, like, you just never know who's watching you. I mean, and not in a weird way, but you never know, like, which teachers are looking at you and thinking, like, dang, I want to do that, but they're too afraid to talk, or they just don't want to. Maybe it's fear of being rejected or seen as weak, or maybe not as good of as strong as a teacher. And I wish that culture would just dissipate, because I think in my mind, I make up that, all teachers come together in their PLC and pick a strategy and learn and go use it and come back together and discuss it. And like, I know that's not reality, but like, that's my like little utopian land. But I just wish people would see that difference of, even in your classroom, as a teacher, if you'll be daring to your students if you're also learning with them, and you tell them, I'm not going to always be right. I am the expert in the room. I know a lot about this topic. I've studied it, and I know the pedagogy behind a lot of things I'm doing, but there's going to be points where, by the way, you're smarter than me in this area, and I'm going to learn from you, or we're going to learn from Google. And it's not about being right. It's about getting it right.
Right. And I think that, like your comment earlier about teachers as facilitators, when you understand that your role is to set up the framework, right, for learning, and then you step into that facilitator role, I think that's really empowering for your kids. Like, that's when we start talking about, student choice, student voice, and all those things happening. And again, you're still the expert. You're still the instructional expert. You're still going to design the learning experience, for lack of a better way of putting it, right?
For lack of a better way, that's the best way to put it. You're still direct instructing. I just did it. I front loaded it. Now the kids are going to do the work. Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. And that the other great thing about that is you can feel when that's happening as a teacher. And when I'm in classrooms observing, you can feel that shift happening. And it's really a satisfying experience for teachers to be able to say, I set this up and look what happened as a result, right? And that really is that shift from teacher in the front of the classroom delivering information to kids, finding information that I'm facilitating through that experience.
And I consider that to be the best part about teaching. I think a lot of people get burnt out because they're doing it all on their own. And there's different factors to teacher burnout, but I would consider that to be one of the main ones. Is you're working too hard. You got to work. You still work hard, but use your people. Like,
yes,
if you're going to make a station rotation activity, make two, and then somebody else makes two, and somebody else makes two, and you guys have all kind of agreed this is what we're going to do. Go do it, and then watch your kids' minds just grow and expand, and you're there to help them, and you're guiding them to the where you want them to end up. But just watching them go through these learning experiences, to me, were my favorite days in the classroom by far, because I mean, they already had the information. They now are going to expand their knowledge of that information, and that's what's going to make it stick, for sure.
Well, and I love what you just said too, because here's the other thing: great teachers working together only makes them better, right? Like when you have that team and you trust each other, well then, like, okay, now my possibilities have just expanded, because I only have so many tools in my toolbox, but my fellow teachers got a whole different set of tools. And that's really how I think teachers grow as well, is by working together and trusting one another.
Well, and respecting each other's different styles. I work in a department of, the three of us that are instructional specialists have completely different styles of teaching. And the way we research, the way we develop things, everything's very different. And I've just to learn to appreciate that, like, my style is not the way, like,
right.
And incorporating all those different styles into my classroom is also going to help me differentiate for a bunch of different kids who have different learning styles. So it really does just start to benefit and balloon out not only your experience with your colleagues, but also the experience of all the students collectively are getting multiple different avenues of ways that they can learn information.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. So how do you select? Okay. So you're a principal and you're like, okay, these are my focuses, which that's a lot considering you already have all the other things going on. It's almost like, in my view, it would be wonderful if you had like a managerial, like an actual admin administrator, and then like an instructional leader administrator. Like that would be my perfect world, because I feel like just doing both, your head must be spinning. But how do you select instructional focus, because you've got this huge campus, and then how do you, like, who's in that conversation with you? So like, here's our instructional focus for the year, who's in that conversation, and then how do you determine like who those ambassadors are that are going to help you relay this out to your campus and get that buy-in that you were talking about earlier?
Okay, so this has been a work in progress at Highland for sure. When I first started, it was really just me and the admin team, and we would, like, the first year we went into classrooms and we kind of looked at what was going on, and we were like, all right, what we really need is engagement. Really traditional classrooms, lots of kids still in rows, teacher in the front of the room, and it wasn't bad. That's the thing. It was just not what I wanted it to be as far as the experience we were offering kids, right? And so then we started out with, okay, we're going to focus on engagement, and specifically we're going to work on collaboration in classrooms. So we did that for a couple of years, and now it's so funny because of COVID, we've had to put kids back in rows, and my teachers all year have been begging to go back to groupings, which I'm like, all right, yes, we have succeeded in moving, yeah, like, yeah, that's fantastic. But
It's fantastic. Yeah.
it is, honestly. I figured out, like I don't even know if it was like year or two or three, where I was like, I cannot do this all by myself. And I went to a conference, Model Schools, which is, I think, the best place to go if you're an instructional leader. And there was a model at a high school where they developed an instructional leadership team and really completely turned their professional development over to their teachers. And I came back and I was like, that's awesome, because I have some rock star teachers that I am not leaning on enough. So what we did is I invited faculty to apply to be part of the instructional leadership team. I selected based on several things, actually: experience, style, area of focus, because I really wanted representation across my building.
Yeah.
And I sent them out with a, excuse me, with a, like a, I don't even know how, it was like an observation tool, basically. And they were looking for specific indicators.
Yeah, they're not evaluating. They're just like looking for things.
Yeah, we call it like instructional rounds is what we call it, right? They're literally just observing and gathering information. And then they came back, they made recommendations about what they felt the area of focus should be. And lo and behold, guess what? It was still engagement. And then what we did is we sat down and we started mapping out our PD for the year. And they all have a particular like area of expertise. And so what they would do is they would develop a professional development workshop. And then I would allow my teachers on those, our half days and our early releases that are for PD to choose one of those options. But the common thread was student engagement. And so we had teachers teach collaboration strategies. We had them teach technology strategies. We had them teach discussion strategies. I mean, there's just this wide menu. And then what our intention was this year, because this has kind of been an evolving model, was I met with my lead teacher on that team, and we developed pathways. And so this year, what was supposed to happen is teachers at the beginning of the year would pick their pathway, and then experts on that instructional leadership team would develop a series that built on a skill. So if you're going to learn about collaboration, we're going to start with a pretty simple structure, and then we're going to move it up so that they have the opportunity to come and learn something basic, get good at that, come back, and now we're going to level it up, basically. And they're going to learn that skill. They're going to have time to practice it. They're going to come back a third time, level it up, go back and practice it, so that they stay focused and we're not quite so scattered.
COVID.
I know COVID has like derailed all kinds of amazing plans. It's funny, the other day I was looking at some documents from end of before COVID shut everything down. And I was like, wow, we used to do some really awesome things. Like, we're all kind of in survival mode right now.
Yeah. And poor teachers are feeling that too. Like, where did my awesome stuff go? Like,
yeah. And the reality is that we have to let teachers take care of themselves. Like, I need my teachers healthy and well, honestly. So things look as great as they always have? Probably not. But here's the deal. At the end of the year, we're all going to take a pause. We're going to breathe through the summer, and we'll come back in August and we'll be ready to go. Yeah, I need the educators in the building. I need them well. And it's been really, really hard. So anyway, so that's going back to your actual question. That's kind of what we do here, and it's worked beautifully.
Modeling choice, because we want student choice, so let's give teachers some choice,
right?
Even though there's a common thread of learning, and it's really hard for teachers, because I think a lot of teachers think my kids are participating in my instruction, and they think that means they're engaged. And it's so hard to tell, especially, I'm an old high school English teacher, and I remember, like, my kids they look invested, like they look like they're listening to me. It wasn't until I started doing a lot of Kagan strategies and like my first, like, I was like, oh yeah, no, like they can fake it so well, like they're so good at smiling and nodding and taking notes, and like, and then raising their hand to answer questions or whatever. And so until I started doing some like serious, I basically had to like redo my whole teaching philosophy, and do some research about participation versus engagement and how those things are different. It wasn't until those moments where it started to click for me as a teacher. But teachers are so busy as well that I feel like it's really hard for them to sit down and have research strategies in their toolbox, especially when they're in survival mode like this year. That's been hard.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the things that has worked really well with the ILT is they get to focus. And so part of their thing is, you don't go out and research 5 different things. Go out and research one thing, get good at that, right? And then go teach it to someone else. And it's worked really well. And they were really, like, in the beginning, they were really hesitant and super scary to get up and present in front of your colleagues. But we've gotten this model now where my teachers expect that they will be taught by other teachers. And so it's not always me in front of them. It's not always one of the admin team in front of them. And I'll always take a piece of it. But it's just shifted the attitude around what we do on professional development days. And that's been awesome.
Well, you're also lifting up some teachers that they get to shine a little bit, and other teachers are like, ooh, I want to do, you know what I mean? Like, I have an idea, or I want to do something. And that's huge for culture, culture shift. Sure. So speaking of culture and cultures, and trying to create a positive culture on campus, a lot of times teachers will get real flustered around evaluation time. And I don't know why. I know our new evaluation tool is tough. It is. But I still do it. Like, my boss will come in and watch me teach a bunch of teachers, and I'm like, oh, and it's like, I know what I'm doing. I've done this class like 6 times. Like, it's, but I still get these like little butterflies in my stomach, because I like want to make sure like I'm on point. And it's not a dog and pony show. Like, I do this all the time, but there's still that, oh man, they're my boss. They're the person that I really want to impress. So how do you use the evaluation tool to support that instructional vision? So let's say it is on engagement, which is great, because at least your teachers know what the focus is, so they have clarity. But if you don't have collective commitment from that vision, because it's hard to please everyone, right? There's always that phrase, like, you're not guacamole, you're not going to please everyone. There's always going to be those few little rascal naysayer people, and I think it just, I would say that's just reality. How do you use that tool, though, you think, to help them see some where they're doing great in instruction, and maybe where they do need some more tools in their toolbox?
Well, let's start with by acknowledging that evaluation tool is tough. It's really, really tough.
I looked at it and I was like,
I know. I know, no, it's really tough. I think that there's a couple of things. The first thing that kind of came to mind is that the tool allows for self-assessment. So teachers can go into the tool before we even start and self-assess, and they can use exactly the same indicators that we look for during observations. And then when they set those goals and I meet with them, we talk about their goals. And that's been one of the things with COVID, is that process has not been as clear as it normally is, which has been tough, honestly. So in a normal year, right, they would self-assess, they would set a goal as part of our pre-conference conversation. We would look at their goal, and I always ask them, what do you want me to look for when I come in your room? And you know, and then they can give me an area to focus on. And so when I come back to do a post conference with them, when we're actually going through the observation, I really focus in on where they feel like they want feedback. I don't give them 50,000 things to go do. I give them one or two areas of feedback, and they've chosen the areas. And then again, because we do have a school-wide focus, like a few years ago, we were really trying to focus on collaboration. When we did the pre-conference conversation, I would ask them, how are you building collaboration, right? Or if we focus on closure or formative assessment, well, where's the opportunity for formative assessment? What are you going to use for a closure activity? So part of it is like, I'm going to set you up for success, right? I'm going to make sure you're doing that thing that I'm looking for. And I think being honest and transparent and going in and not having it be a gotcha is huge. That tool is successful, I think, when there is trust between the teacher and the administrator.
Right.
And that's because it's hard. We talk about coaching teachers all the time, but coaching is not evaluative, right? Like the minute it becomes evaluative, then it feels different. And so we try to take some of the fear out of the tool. One of the things I did when we moved to the Danielson model is that I did like a workshop on one of our PD days where we really broke it down. We looked at the indicators. We talked about what would that look like in action. And I think it took a little bit of the fear away from people. And then the other thing, we tried to normalize that if you're an effective teacher, our student achievement will be exactly where it needs to be. I don't need a building full of highly effective teachers. I need a building full of effective teachers, right? Going above and beyond, that's awesome. And I want to encourage everyone to do that, but I don't want anyone beating themselves up when they land in that effective range at all. Like, I'm going to high five you and tell you good job. So
it seems to me that a lot of them have been highly effective in other tools. So for them to hear that from you, for me as a teacher, I looked at that evaluation tool and was like, I was highly effective when I was in the classroom, but I would not be highly effective on this tool. I would be effective. But to hear my principal tell me that, hey, that's where we're going to be, I would feel a little less pressure, I think, as a teacher, because my principal's telling me, look, like effective is good. I think it's like when we tell our students, like, I really don't need a room full of A kids. Like whoever you are, but I need you to be a great learner, passionate and curious and pushing yourself and persevering. Like that's what I need from you. It's kind of like saying that, but saying that to the teachers for sure.
Yes, for sure. And then I think the other piece of that is that there's something good that happens in every single classroom. Like we need to recognize the efforts of teachers. And I'm sure I've failed at that as a building leader, but I try to remember what it felt like when I was in the classroom. I taught for 18 years. So I was not like in the classroom a couple of years and now I'm going to be an administrator. Like I walk the walk. And I try to remember what that felt like and what it felt like to have a principal come in a room and like exactly what you said. I always wanted to impress my administrators because I'm kind of a people pleaser. Like that's a real thing.
Right? I'm it's called human giver syndrome. Look it up. We both probably have it.
Yeah. And so I think one of the commitments I made to myself, and I'm sure I've fallen short of this at times, is that I would never forget what it felt like to be a classroom teacher. And I'm so fortunate. My oldest daughter has been teaching now for 8 years, and like she helps keep me real. Like she reminds me of, what it's like every day to walk into a classroom with 30 kids and struggle to get them to like engage and, finish the work and do the reading. And so I really appreciate that I have people in my life that kind of keep me grounded.
Yeah, for sure. That makes like, even being a teacher mom, like as far as my daughter's only in second grade, but watching her go through some of her things and listening to her teacher, but it was so weird to be like the fly on the wall during COVID, because I'm trying, it's so hard. I'm trying not to say anything. It's just doing her online learning, but I'm listening to her teacher like, "Ooh, that was a good strategy."
Yeah.
But like, and I wanted to email her later and be like, "That's a good strategy." But then I'm like, "That's weird. Like, no mom would email." And say, "That was a really cool strategy with my daughter today." But then my husband's like, "No, you should email her, because how often do teachers get emails from parents about their instructional strategy?"
Seriously, you should. Like, that would be a huge, like, "Oh, thank you so much."
I was like, yeah, but then I think I scared her, like, "Oh, she's an instructional specialist." And I'm like, no, just ignore that part of me. But like, I just wanted to tell you, like, hey, like, that was awesome. I mean, over virtual learning, you were doing a really complex strategy, and those kids were hanging on every word and manipulating and doing things in front of their screens. Like, I couldn't have been more proud of you or impressed by you. And I think I made her cry. She was so excited. Not my intention, but
those are big.
Those are big, and those are big for teachers, especially I think high school teachers. We don't get a lot of attaboys from parents. We get a lot of angry parents, and so I'm hoping to keep that going throughout my kids' education, even when they get into the higher grades. Because I remember being a high school teacher and looking at the persons and grade teachers and going, "No, I don't get presents." Okay, but it's fine. Okay, so we've kind of talked about this and touched about this a little bit on the way, but for the principals listening, and for any assistant principal listening, in terms of like, I want to do this, I want to be an instructional leader, I want to create instructional leadership teams, I want to have instructional rounds, I want all these things, like, what do they need to do in order to start this ball rolling? Could you give them like a little, like, step 1, step 2, step 3, like something kind of simple that would just help them to start making way? Because I know it's so hard for a lot of administrators.
I mean, step 1 is know your staff, right? Like, get in their classrooms, know what they do, know who your strong people are, know who your people are. In every building, you will have allies, and if instruction is your thing, you need to know who those people are out there, because they are going to be your biggest support, your biggest resource. I think the second reason you want to know your team is you need to know where the potential is, right? Like, I have some teachers that are young, energetic. They just don't have the experience yet, but they have everything it takes to be a great teacher. And so I want to make sure. Say one more time.
They don't know what they don't know yet.
Right. They don't know what they don't know yet. That's exactly it. But when you can identify those people, then you can put resources into growing them, right?
To grow because they don't know anything yet.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think once you get the energy going that instruction matters, we're going to recognize it, we're going to celebrate it. It can really shift the attitude, I think, of teachers in a building. They get excited about sharing their wins in the classroom. And my feeling is like that's the work, is growing teachers, because when I became an administrator, it was funny. I'd been told for a few years, like, hey, you should really think about, getting a administrative license. And I didn't really have a vision for like life after the classroom was my problem. And so I just kept teaching because I liked teaching and it was good. And I had to have a why to move into administration. And finally, my why was, I want to have a bigger impact on kids. And then, I had friends that were like, well, you're leaving them. I'm like, no, I'm moving to a place where I can ensure that every kid has a great teacher in their classroom. And let's face it, that's where we have the biggest impact on kids, is teachers to kids every single day. And, it's funny when you'll hear people, don't understand, like, why we have all these administrators. I'm like, well, they create that guidance so that those kids have great teachers. Like, that's the whole kind of vision here.
many teachers that one person can't do that all and do the myriad of things that we talked about before.
Exactly. So that's the first thing I think is know your people, like get out there, know who they are, know what they're good at, know where their skill set lies, know where your opportunities, for growing people are. The other thing I would tell new administrators is you have to treat instruction like it matters. If you do that, that shift will happen. And it's so easy for building principals to get distracted by all the things you listed. Yes, all those things have to happen.
Sure, yeah.
Right? But instruction has to stay at the core. So it can't be that you you're so frustrated with, the budget, which cracks me up. The budget is really not the biggest thing, I promise. But it can't be that you're so distracted by the budget that you forget that in the building there are kids with teachers in front of them, right? And when you treat instruction like it matters, That's the best way to say it. So when you stay current, when you're doing the reading, when you're doing the work and you're sharing that with people, they figure out what's important to you. And I have to say teachers are kind of people pleasers too. And they want to share a vision. I do know that. I think, I don't know, my experience kind of all the way through is I always wanted to know what my principal wanted from me. And my experience now being a principal is my teachers want the same thing. But I think, staying on that message, growing yourself, learning along the way, admitting when you've screwed up and that wasn't very good. I don't know why we did that. I think being real.
Never again. That was terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny talking to, different principals over the years. We all have our own leadership style, but I think that you build trust with people, and it's back to Brene Brown, right? When you build trust with people by being vulnerable. And so not being afraid to say, yeah, that didn't work so well. I'm going to try it differently next time. I'm so sorry. I think that just lends itself to, that relationship that administrators have with teachers. They have to trust if we want to move forward.
What is the common thing that all teachers can speak to? It's instruction. Every teacher, I would hope, does not go into their classroom and think I'm not going to instruct today.
Right.
They all are there because they want to instruct kids.
Yep.
It's how they do it. And so it's getting that, research behind these kids in front of you are different than those kids that you taught 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And here's why. And then I think all teachers that I have ever taught have always been thank you for these tools. I just don't have time to research this and know that these things exist. But once I know and I see it, I can go do that. I want to. I rarely meet a teacher who really pushes back on gaining more instructional tools. No. I think it's a common language that we all, as teachers, we want to do well. We want to instruct well because we want our kids to learn the material. I think it's a matter sometimes of, like you said, they've got a lot of things going on as well. And so if you have that as a theme of your campus, I think you'll gain a lot of support because teachers are no, I instruct. And then we can go into but how are you instructing and how's that impacting the students? And then we can have these conversations.
Absolutely. The comment that got made to me by a building principal who teaches is in Florida was be relentless in your will. And it's written on my board because it can be really discouraging when you have this idea of what you want a building to look like and be shaped by. And and you'll have naysayers out there. People will not want to make change. Change is hard for humans, and I know that. But if you stay on message, if you are, as she put it, relentless in your will, you'll be able to make huge strides. It's kind of one of those things where, over time, you just have to be patient. I guess that's the best way to say it. You have to be patient, but you have to stay true to what that message is around what you expect in your classrooms for your kids. And you have to keep those kids front and center. I mean, I have 4 kids of my own. They're all adults now. And I just think back, and I was so fortunate to know their teachers and see what their experience was like. Right. But I just felt like it was such a gift when they would come home and they would tell me all the awesome things that happened in a class. And they had some of the most gifted educators that I have ever been able to work alongside. And I just think about like that experience. That's what I want for every kid, not just my own kid, you know?
Absolutely.
And the biggest compliment is like to a teacher is I would put my kid in your class. Like for me, I cannot, that is the best compliment I could possibly give someone.
Oh, I was just reading this book, and the other day, it's called Unpacked Your Impact. And I think I posted on it. And I literally was, as I was reading it, I was like, I want my kid in those kids' class. Not that I don't love my kids' teachers. I love them. They're great. But that style, I'm like, they're taking education and just basically saying, we're just gonna like blow this up and change it because our world is changing rapidly and we are just gonna go for it. It's and it was probably one of the best books I've read all year because it made me even think about education and the systems and the way I was taught way differently. It's to the point now where I'm like, do I make a reading cohort on this book next year? Like I'm almost like that's how passionate I am about the book.
That's cool.
Yeah, but I feel like when I said that, one of the authors actually on Instagram replied to me, which I was not expecting. Lanisha Tapp said, this is the highest compliment that I could have ever gotten is that you just said you read my book and you want your kid in my class.
Yeah.
And that, it is. It's what teachers want to hear for sure. Oh my gosh.
Put me on your list. I'll totally read it with you.
Yeah, I'm trying. Well, it's so funny because yes, Unpacked Your Impact by Naomi O'Brien and Lanisha Tapp, and it is honestly, it's how two primary teachers stitched problematic lessons and built a culture-centered curriculum. And honestly, I would say it just eye-opening and amazing. But yeah, I might do a little reading teacher thing with that. If anyone's interested, let me know. Email me up. Okay, so I have rapid fire questions that I did not tell you about. Are you excited?
I'm very excited.
I love it. Okay, education is
the doorway.
Okay, I love that. The doorway. Yeah, like I always we did with my students the curiosity window, and every day I would put up a picture on my screen and I called it the curiosity window. What do you think about this picture or this video or this image, and how do you think it relates to what we're learning today? And they would be super abstract. And so that's what it reminds me of, the doorway, like getting them in and through, right? Getting them in and through the door. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, what inspires you?
Well, in the world of education, it would be watching kids learn, which means watching great teachers teach. In my personal world, watching my grandkids, and it's that same thing, like all that possibility in front of them, and yet I'm not in charge of them.
My mom's like, being a grandparent is way better than being a parent.
Way better. It's the reason you have children. That's what I keep telling my own children. Like, this is the reason I have children. It's so that you could have grandchildren for me. Yeah, they're amazing.
I'm excited. I have a long way to go though, but you're there. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you could pass on wisdom to any students on your campus, I guess even maybe your kids or your grandkids, what would you pass on? What would you share?
Probably right now, that this too shall pass. I think that, like, it's funny. I'm the same age now that my mom was when I started having kids, and I remember calling her and being upset about something, and her just being like, in the scheme of things, this isn't a big deal. And I remember back in the day feeling like, wow, that's really not very empathetic, Mom. But I think that one of the things I've learned is that when we take care of business on our end, that somehow things always work out for the best. And we just have to trust that those better days or those good things will come our way if we're just doing our part.
Yeah, I agree. I really do. I mean, I've been through some stuff, and I think we all have. And especially this last year and a half, almost 2 years. But I think this too shall pass is such a great phrase because I think everybody's like burning gas right now. Like,
yes,
we're all ready for some type of break, some type of reprieve from the levels of stress that we've been at. And I think if we figure out ways to chip away at that stress by just taking care of the little things we can that are possible to take care of, it will help kind of release some of that as we go through the days.
Yeah. Recognizing, you can only do what you can do. I think like I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I've learned I don't have control of everything, right? I have to take care of the things I can take care of. The rest I just have to kind of, let it go. And that's a really hard thing if you're a control freak.
I'm a control freak too, and I've had to really learn. I mean, stress got me really, really sick and ill and actually took me out of the classroom. And I've had to learn, okay, I can't get this stressed again. So I've had to learn a lot of techniques on how to do that. And it's hard for people like us that are very type A. I would say maybe a little bit OCD on the OCD side, because we are people pleasers. We want to work until the work is done. We have extreme perseverance and tenacity, which are great traits, but can work very hard against us. So just knowing where your strengths and weaknesses come from is huge.
Yes,
okay, what are your must-have smartphone apps?
So right now, Robinhood. I'm learning to invest. I'm not very good at it. I am
Robinhood, like the story?
No, like Robinhood with the money, like the
Oh, yeah, it's an investment app. I don't know about this. I'm writing this down.
Okay, so, literally, I'm terrible at math. It's really a problem. So I kind of tune out when anything comes to numbers. And my son-in-law sets up this Robinhood account for me. And, like everybody else, I mean, I have retirement accounts, but I don't pay attention to it. And so like the last few months, I've been learning about the stock market and investing, and I know barely enough to be dangerous. I'm like, wow, there are people that are really smart out there who figure out like how to make money grow. I'm really not so far one of them, but I'm learning.
I'm not one of them, but my husband loves stuff like this, so I'm going to tell him immediately tonight about this because he's going to be like all about it. I know he is.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. Part of it is like addictive because you're constantly wondering if you're going to make money or lose money on any given day. I also have learned I should never have gone into the world of finance. So it's really good that I'm an educator. So yeah. The other one right now is TikTok. I love TikTok. I will not ever make a TikTok, so don't get any ideas. But
good for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. As an administrator, it's probably not good that I have a TikTok and I love it. Yeah, I'm addicted.
I love that. Like, it's just so nice to be able to, like, I have to set a timer because otherwise I lose time. But it's completely mindless entertainment. And I love the cleaning videos. I have found all kinds of great household hints on cleaning my house, and I love a clean house. So I'm a little ridiculous. Last year before my daughter left to go on a mission, and I would come home from school and I'd be like, what'd you do today? And she'd be like, I watched 3 hours of TikTok. And I'm like, what is TikTok? What are you doing?
I know,
right? Yeah, so she leaves and I'm like, all right, I'm going to check out this TikTok thing. And then I totally understood. I'm like, oh, I know how you could lose 3 hours of your life to this thing.
Very hard. Okay, so I love clean TikTok as well because I learned a bunch of different tricks that if you use tack cloth on your baseboards, all your dust comes up way faster. And then there's recipe TikTok. Like you got to start hashtagging recipe TikTok because it shows you the recipes and like what to dump and everything. And they're super easy. And then they link it to like the recipe website.
Okay. All right. I'm making myself a note. Okay.
If you're like, not to distract you anymore from your life, but I've been enjoying recipe TikTok, especially with my new Instapot. So, okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Last rapid fire question, and then we'll wrap this up. You've been awesome, and I appreciate you. And we're over the hour, so I don't want to take too much more of your time. What song do you know all the lyrics to?
Oh my goodness. So first, I'm terrible with song lyrics. You should just know this. My husband loves music and he wants to play Name That Tune. I can't do it. I'm horrible. But I used to know all the words to Fergalicious.
Okay.
But you have to when you're a high school teacher, right?
You really do.
And I'm pretty sure I do know all the words to Bohemian Rhapsody, but no one should ever ask me to sing in front of them. That is a no.
If you don't know all the words to Bohemian Rhapsody, that needs to become part of the educational process. Because I love that song.
Yeah.
Okay, you were very brave. Thank you for going through all of those rapid fire questions. If people want to learn more from you, where can they find you online, or can they email you? Just to kind of, if there's something they heard that they're like, oh, I want to hear or learn or find where she got that information from, where can they get that from you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yes, you can always email me, and that's just, melinda.murphy@gilbertschools.net. As far as following me online, Instagram, or on Facebook. And, obviously I only lurk on TikTok because I'm not nearly as brave as you are.
Lurkers are totally, I was a lurker for a really long time until quarantine hit. And then I was like, oh, I have to talk to people even if they're not real. And so that's what happened. My husband's like, why are you on TikTok? I'm like, honey, it's the teacher in me. Like, I must perform.
That's awesome.
And he was like, you're sick. And I'm like, I know, but I have to, it's like, I feel like, and then what's been really cool though, is I have this fun teacher community on TikTok. Like, we have so much fun together. And oddly enough, I've gotten in with all the Canadian teachers. I don't know what happened, but it's been really fun. I've been like able to watch their videos and kind of things they do in their classroom, which is totally different than what we do in the States.
Very
and
cool.
then give me some ideas. So it's almost like kind of networking in a way, but also really super fun. So, okay. On Instagram, are you just at Melinda Murphy?
It's at Melinda, LMAZ.
Okay.
And Facebook, just Melinda Murphy.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, you are awesome. And I appreciate you so much. I appreciate everything you do for your staff and your students. And I hope that the rest of this school year is kind of easy breezy. I know that's like wishful thinking, but we'll just knock on wood. And then that August, everybody can kind of come back and feel refreshed and restart and ready to go. Maybe less COVID, less masks, and hopefully all those things. So
exactly my hope as well. And thank you for taking the time to chat with me. It was fun.
Oh, I love doing this, but this was awesome. I mean, I know you have such a busy schedule, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Learning Unlocked and finding out more about how to be an instructional leader on your campus. If you have listened today as a GPS educator, you can receive PD recertification credit by visiting our Employee Hub page and navigating to professional growth and then digital PD courses. Just a reminder that we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GPS Prof Growth. That's at GPS Prof Growth. For more information or resources from this episode, please visit our website at learningunlocked.libsyn.com/website. We are distributed by Libsyn to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Audible. Episodes are also available on our PGD YouTube channel under playlists. Our intro and outro music are licensed from Melody Loops. Thanks again, key holders. Keep unlocking curiosity, creativity, and innovation with your students. Stay kind and courageous, and I will see you next time.